On January 13th, 2022, the sky over Honolulu, Hawaii was clear and beautiful. Tokuhara Lily, 81 years old, woke up early but felt uneasy. The night before, around 6 p.m., she texted her son Tokuhara John. He had said he would visit her and bring some lunch boxes he had prepared. However, she waited all evening but never saw her son arrive. Thinking that John was busy at his clinic and might have encountered an emergency that kept him working through the night, causing him to forget their appointment, she felt both worried and sympathetic. The next morning, Lily carefully packed the food she had cooked and drove to his clinic. In her mind, her son must have been exhausted, and rather than calling and disturbing him, she decided to bring the food directly to him. Mrs. Lily drove to a building in the city center and parked behind the clinic. Immediately, she saw her son's familiar white pickup truck parked right in front, with the back door still open. Thinking her son must be inside, she walked straight in. The atmosphere inside was unusually quiet, eerily silent. Lily felt a sense of unease rising within her. Then the scene before her left her speechless. White papers scattered everywhere, and her son John, 47 years old, lying motionless in the middle of the floor, surrounded by red liquid around his head. Tears immediately flowed as she trembled, utterly confused but still trying to remain calm as she ran outside shouting for help. Within minutes, ambulances, police, and fire trucks arrived, and people in the area who heard the commotion quickly came to assist. But it was all too late. John had been gone for a long time, and the room was immediately sealed off by police. News of John's death shocked the entire community. Everyone said he was a positive, healthy person who always treated everyone kindly and regularly participated in volunteer activities. The clinic he founded not only helped patients reduce their pain, but also brought many benefits to the community. However, such a person had to die in misfortune, which was hard for anyone to accept. John, 47, had never married and had no children. He was a happy bachelor. But he was never lonely because his family was always by his side. His mother, Mrs. Lily, had 3 children, with John being the youngest son who was lovingly cared for by his 2 older sisters. He was also very close to his nieces and nephews, like a close friend within the family. In daily life, John was passionate about physical fitness and always paid attention to healthy eating. As a healthcare professional, he believed that he himself must live scientifically and healthily. Outside of work, he particularly loved water sports such as fishing, surfing, and kayaking. After graduating from college, John decided to pursue traditional medicine and acupuncture. He studied diligently, earned a master's degree and a medical license, then opened an independent clinic locally. This place became a trusted address, contributing hope and faith to many people in the community. During the crime scene investigation, police discovered 2 bullet casings on the floor near John's head. In a corner of the room farther away and next to the refrigerator, they found 2 more bullet casings. All 4 bullets had hit the head area, showing this was definitely a premeditated murder with vengeful intent rather than random. Additionally, in the desk drawer, police discovered about $4,000 scattered around. This money was easily visible, but the perpetrator had not touched it at all. This proved that the killer's sole target was John's life, not his property. At the scene, police also collected a red fingerprint clearly visible on the wall, believed to be blood. Additionally, detectives discovered 2 cell phones on the desk, both belonging to John. One could only connect to Wi-Fi and was the phone he used for gaming. The other was his main phone. Data showed that this phone was last used at 6:18 p.m. that day. From surveillance footage outside the clinic, police discovered a man wearing a fisherman's hat appearing around 6 p.m. on January 12th. His movement direction went straight toward John's clinic. Just 48 seconds after entering, this man appeared again on camera, this time leaving the clinic in the opposite direction. However, he wore a white hat, dark sunglasses, and had his face completely covered. Moreover, the surveillance image quality was poor, so police could not identify his actual appearance. Besides this footage, before Mrs. Lily, John's mother, entered the clinic, no one else had approached the area. This made the initial clues collected virtually useless for quickly finding the perpetrator. Faced with this situation, police began using the timestamp of John's phone's last activity to investigate traffic records of vehicles appearing around the building at the time of the suspected crime. They quickly discovered that at 5:57 p.m., a white pickup truck had turned from Farrington Highway onto Waipahu Station Road, then headed north before stopping somewhere without cameras. Soon after, at the next intersection, a figure was seen walking around the road toward the clinic. Later, this pedestrian appeared in surveillance from nearby shops. This was the suspicious man who appeared at John's clinic. After carefully analyzing the white pickup truck, police found surveillance footage capturing it driving on the highway. Through comparison, they determined this was very likely a Chevrolet pickup model manufactured between 2014 and 2016. Although cameras captured the front license plate, the image was too blurry for experts to read accurately despite their efforts. Some experts speculated that the license plate numbers might be a combination of 3 letters and 3 numbers. From this clue, police immediately narrowed down all white Chevrolet pickup trucks registered in Hawaii. They specifically filtered 52 vehicles of the same model. After a series of investigations and eliminations, 51 vehicles were confirmed innocent. This left only 1 vehicle and its owner in the police's sights. The owner of the pickup truck was a 32-year-old man named Eric Thompson. He was a fairly successful local businessman who ran his own construction team. With a stable career and good income, Eric lived with his wife and 2-year-old daughter in an upscale complex in Honolulu. Upon further verification, police discovered that Eric and John had indeed known each other. However, this connection had occurred 4 years earlier. At that time, through a friend's introduction, John had helped Eric treat carpal tunnel syndrome. After that incident, the two had virtually no further connection. This somewhat discouraged police, as clearly they could not conclude Eric was involved in the crime based on an old acquaintance. However, very soon after, detectives discovered a surprising new clue. Eric's wife, Joyce, was also John's patient. Through analyzing John's phone activity, police discovered that Joyce and John had not only a doctor-patient relationship, but also maintained a secret affair hidden for many years. So was Joyce, the woman who had a romantic relationship with John, the real killer. After 3 weeks of secret investigation, police finally announced some developments to the media. It turned out that Eric and Joyce had been sweethearts since high school. They met while attending Kalani High School. In old photos, both were young people with striking appearances and bright dispositions. On January 14, 2014, they officially held their wedding, deliberately choosing the date that marked their 13th anniversary to commemorate this important milestone. The wedding was extremely grand, held at a beachfront villa in Hawaii. After graduating from the University of Hawaii, Eric devoted all his energy to developing his career. In his 20s, he had become the owner of a construction company, leading a team of dozens of employees and handling multiple large projects. His abundant income allowed him to quickly purchase a house worth $2 million as a home for his small family. As for Joyce, she retreated to become a solid support system, wholeheartedly caring for the family. Their married life at that time was so sweet that many people admired them. However, after being married for some time, Eric and Joyce still had no children. This caused both of them frequent worry and anxiety. They had consulted Western medicine, but doctors said both were completely healthy and advised them to be patient. During this time, an old high school teacher who had taught both of them happened to hear about their troubles. The teacher enthusiastically introduced the young couple to acupuncturist John, who was said to be able to regulate the body and support fertility. Hearing this, Joyce eagerly went to John's clinic for treatment. After several acupuncture sessions, John concluded that Joyce's blood circulation was blocked and needed additional massage techniques as support. Joyce agreed to this. During this treatment period, she even brought her husband Eric to the clinic, asking John to help treat Eric's carpal tunnel syndrome. After the case occurred, detectives had to put considerable effort into uncovering the secret relationship between John and Joyce. Through analyzing extensive electronic evidence, including up to 5,600 text messages, calls, videos, and photos exchanged between them, they discovered this relationship had quietly continued for many years. Thanks to acupuncturist John's treatment support, Joyce successfully became pregnant and gave birth to a beautiful daughter. However, after the baby was born, Joyce became John's lover. She frankly told him that she had no intention of divorcing her husband, but was willing to maintain the role of secret lover. Both had no hesitation in expressing deep feelings through text messages. What was notable was the significant age gap between them. John was 15 years older than Joyce, and in the early stages, he was the one who took the initiative in this relationship. Some days, John could send Joyce up to 50 consecutive messages. The content exchanged between them was very sensitive, including nude photos, pornographic videos, and extremely private conversations. However, all these interactions seemed to have ended abruptly 6 months before the horrific case occurred. It turned out that Eric, the husband who was always busy with work from morning to night, had accidentally discovered this secret adulterous affair. With his habit of frequently leaving early and returning late, one day Eric decided to check the home security camera system and unexpectedly discovered something unusual. On a night when he was away on business, Joyce had secretly left the house around 1 a.m. What was particularly concerning was that through the camera, he could clearly see his wife had left their newborn daughter alone in the house. After more than 30 minutes, Joyce's car reappeared at the front gate. Eric couldn't help but wonder, in the middle of such a late night, where had his wife gone? And why could she leave their tiny baby without anyone watching? Faced with Eric's relentless questioning, Joyce finally could not deny it and was forced to confess the entire truth about her affair with John. She tried to defend herself by claiming that John was the one who actively seduced her, and she had no real feelings for him. Joyce then cried and begged her husband for forgiveness, promising to completely cut off this wrongful relationship and return to being a devoted wife and mother. Although Eric ultimately decided to forgive her after hearing his wife's commitment to end all contact with John, his handling was somewhat extreme. He forced Joyce to kneel before both families' parents and promise never to commit adultery again. To ensure he would never be betrayed again, Eric came up with a very decisive method. We'll reveal what this was in the later court proceedings. When police approached Eric and Joyce, both frankly admitted that their marriage had indeed experienced major upheavals due to the affair. However, Eric emphasized that Joyce had written a written commitment and publicly apologized before both families, so he gradually moved on. Eric shared that over time, the anger and resentment in his heart had gradually subsided. More importantly, he still had a 2-year-old daughter, and he insisted he could never commit such an insane act as murder. Regarding this couple's statements, police also found them somewhat reasonable. Through deeper investigation, they discovered that victim John's private life was much more complex than they had initially imagined. Over many years, he had maintained intertwined romantic relationships with many different women. Notably, most of these were long-term patients of his clinic. In fact, at least 2 women had decided to divorce their husbands because of John's presence in their lives. Could these women or the betrayed husbands also be on the suspect list? With this thought, police interviewed 2 related husbands. The first husband, named Mark, frankly shared that when he first discovered his wife's affair, he was indeed very angry and hurt. However, as time passed, he learned to accept and let go. Both had divorced peacefully, and he had also found new happiness with another woman. Surprisingly, Mark even expressed gratitude toward John, as he noticed that during the final stages of the divorce, John had been very thoughtful in caring for his ex-wife and his 2 daughters. The second man had a similar reaction when interviewed. He said he had completely overcome past events and no longer cared. Currently, he and his ex-wife had naturally separated, so he harbored no hatred toward John. After screening and clarifying all related relationships, police concluded that Eric and his wife Joyce remained the most suspicious suspects in this case. Through carefully examining the security camera systems of neighbors around Eric's house, detectives were able to track his movements on the fateful afternoon of January 12, 2022. According to collected data, Eric had made a total of 2 trips driving the white pickup truck away from home. The first departure was recorded at 5:20 p.m. when Eric left his house and drove straight toward the highway. However, on the route from Eric's house to the acupuncture clinic in Waipahu, the surveillance camera system was not dense enough to continuously track all his movements. Nevertheless, if the vehicle appearing in the surveillance videos truly belonged to Eric, then the entire timeline matched almost perfectly. According to calculations from Google Maps, travel time by car from the highway entrance to the clinic area ranged from 35 to 55 minutes, depending on traffic density at the time. Surveillance showed the white pickup truck first appeared in the Waipahu area after 37 minutes of travel, clearly recorded at 5:57 p.m. More notably, security cameras in Eric's neighborhood captured his white pickup truck returning and parking in its familiar spot in front of his house at exactly 6:47 p.m. What was particularly striking was that this time period differed by exactly 30 minutes from 6:17, when the mysterious man wearing a fisherman's hat was captured on camera. Less than an hour after Eric returned home, neighbor cameras recorded continuous flames burning in the backyard area of his house. These flames lasted for about 5 minutes. Eric's second action occurred late that same night. This time, what was notable was that a toolbox had appeared in the truck bed that wasn't there before. Around 10:43 p.m., Eric returned home once again, and the mysterious toolbox could still be clearly observed in the back. Police conducted a comprehensive and meticulous search of this couple's home. However, despite thorough searching, they still could not find any direct evidence that could implicate Eric and Joyce in John's murder. Nevertheless, detectives still discovered some quite suspicious indirect signs that attracted attention. In the backyard, they found a wheelbarrow with a burned metal container inside. Additionally, the search revealed that Eric owned 12 legally registered firearms under his name. Particularly, there were 2 additional unregistered firearms. Among all these weapons, 2 had technical specifications similar to the type of weapon police suspected was used in the case. However, after conducting professional tests, results showed that none of these guns was the actual murder weapon. Joyce, Eric's wife, did not try to hide her secret romantic relationship with Dr. John. However, both she and her husband firmly denied any involvement in John's death. When faced with police investigation, both showed uncooperative attitudes and immediately sought legal protection by hiring lawyers. Among the evidence police collected was a fisherman's hat considered a key clue that could open a breakthrough for the case. Initially, everyone hoped this evidence would become the key to solving the entire mystery. Camera systems had recorded the perpetrator wearing a light-colored fisherman's hat, and shortly after, he accidentally dropped the hat on the street. About 10 minutes after the hat fell to the pavement, a pedestrian discovered and picked it up. This person turned out to be a homeless wanderer. After picking up the hat, he put it on his head. However, when he returned to his temporary shelter made of tarp, he only hung the hat in a corner of his home and never used it again. Forensic experts conducted meticulous examination of the hat and discovered traces of fabric fibers as well as a hair strand. Next, they collected DNA samples from both the brim and crown of the hat. However, the analysis results were not as clear as hoped. The collected DNA evidence showed the presence of 2 different genetic groups. The experts' conclusion was that they could not completely rule out the possibility that Eric was one of the DNA sources. On Valentine's Day, 2022, also marking exactly 18 years since this couple first met, Eric was arrested on 2 serious charges: second-degree murder and using weapons in committing a felony. After paying a massive bail of $1 million, he was allowed to return home to await trial. The formal legal proceedings took place in July 2023. The prosecution's argument focused on motive. They argued that based on the affair between Joyce and John, as well as the brutality of the perpetrator at the crime scene, this showed this was a private murder driven by rage. Police used evidence from the crime scene and the arranged timeline to present their viewpoint. They stated that John's Wi-Fi-only phone showed a program indicating he started a game around 5:40 p.m. and left it running continuously. Police speculated that John was playing the game when he paused to reply to his mother's text message, and shortly after putting down the phone, he was shot by the fisherman's hat-wearing man in the camera. Therefore, for the next 3 hours, the game continued running until the battery died and the phone shut off. The fisherman's hat-wearing man appeared at exactly the right time in surveillance cameras. Near the scene, A Chevrolet pickup truck suspected to be Eric's also appeared. When neighbor cameras recorded Eric's vehicle returning, it was about 40 minutes after John was killed. Eric had told police that his first outing on January 12th was to go to a nearby dump to dispose of trash. For this, police found an employee who was on duty at a dump that day. The employee testified that he did not see Eric driving his white pickup truck to dispose of trash that evening. He also pointed out that Eric's claim about placing bricks and other items in that area was also not allowed behavior in the dump. The prosecution also pointed out that Eric said his second outing was to go to a grocery store to buy household items, but because he paid cash, he could not provide any receipts or proof. Police also described the perfect life and marriage that Eric had hoped for, pointing out that he was a person with strong controlling tendencies and perfectionist traits. To prove this point, they presented a marital agreement that Eric and Joyce signed together 11 days before the incident occurred. This agreement stipulated that Joyce would faithfully fulfill her responsibilities as a wife and mother. If caught cheating, all household property would belong to her husband, Eric, and custody of their 2-year-old daughter would also go to Eric. The prosecution pointed out that such a marital agreement clearly represented Eric's control and coercion of his wife. The prosecution also argued that Eric, in order to restore the perfect life he once had, decided to end the life of John, the person who threatened all his good life. Because as long as John remained alive, life would never be perfect again. When given the opportunity to speak in court, Eric shared his family's painful story sincerely. I came to realize that the problem really lay in the relationship between Joyce and me, she had completely cut off contact with him, Eric confided with a pained expression. He recounted that Joyce had once experienced the pain of losing a child during pregnancy, and after this mental shock, she had taken friends' advice to seek acupuncture therapy as a way to heal. At that time, Eric also completely trusted that John would be the person who could help his wife and him overcome difficulties. However, what confused him was that even after their little daughter was born, Joyce continued to maintain treatment appointments. And then, the painful truth about the secret relationship was exposed. Eric described his wife as a woman with a kind heart, but who was too naive and easily taken advantage of by others. He revealed that Joyce had once confessed to him about visiting a fortune teller, and this person had encouraged her to develop a romantic relationship with John. Eric also emphasized that after the matter was discovered, Joyce showed extreme remorse and determination to save their marriage. She not only swore never to cheat again, but also promised to cut off all contact with fortune tellers or spiritual advisors. However, not long after, Eric discovered that Joyce had broken her promise when she secretly went to see a fortune teller again. This is why the marital agreement they signed was another piece of evidence of the loyalty commitment his wife wanted to demonstrate. The defense team strongly refuted the accusations by asserting that the man wearing a white hat appearing in surveillance images was definitely not Eric. To strengthen this argument, they invited forensic experts as witnesses, who confirmed that there were no DNA traces of Eric on the hat. Additionally, the defense team also vigorously argued that the white Chevrolet pickup truck appearing in the surveillance videos was not owned by their client. Eric testified in court that the burned pot police found in the wheelbarrow at his home was used to remove oil from metal tools, and the flames captured by neighbor cameras were fireworks he set off outside while playing with his daughter. Furthermore, Eric's defense team did not hesitate to express deep frustration about what they considered extremely poor and unprofessional investigation quality. They accused police of having a biased attitude from the beginning, focusing only on hunting for evidence against Eric while completely ignoring and eliminating other potential suspects. According to the defense lawyers, the surveillance videos collected by crime scene police were not only of poor quality, but also handled in a chaotic and careless manner. Particularly serious, they pointed out that crime scene protection had been carried out so carelessly, it was alarming. The clearest evidence was that the deputy sheriff arrived at the scene but took up to 10 minutes before remembering to turn on his personal camera. Furthermore, this official failed to fully report the presence of another colleague at the scene. The defense team continued to criticize police for discovering bloody fingerprints at the scene, but failing to conduct detailed and comprehensive forensic analysis. They emphasized that this case contained many other murky and suspicious points that the prosecution had deliberately overlooked. One particularly important point the defense lawyers wanted to clarify was that the affair between John and Joyce was absolutely not the first time John had been involved with many women. In fact, according to preliminary records they collected, there were up to 2,500 text messages exchanged between John and many different women. What frustrated them was why police could arbitrarily ignore all these suspicious subjects without conducting thorough investigation. The defense team went further by presenting witnesses to prove that John's personal life was truly full of controversial and suspicious activities. They accused the victim of possibly being involved in illegal gambling activities, which explained why police discovered up to $4,000 in cash with large denomination bills hidden at the crime scene. Defense lawyers expressed outrage at what they saw as the prosecution's dismissive attitude and complete disregard for such extremely important details that could change the entire case dynamic. After days of intense arguments, the jury spent a total of 3 full days carefully considering and discussing all evidence and arguments from both sides. The final result showed deep division in viewpoints. 9 members of the jury voted in favor of declaring Eric guilty, while the remaining 3 members firmly believed he was completely innocent. Due to this serious disagreement and inability to reach the necessary consensus, the judge was forced to declare a mistrial. Notably, the second trial that the judge initially planned to take place in October 2023 was also not implemented as scheduled. Furthermore, to this day, no announcement of a new trial date scheduled for this case can be found. Some jury members agreed to participate in media interviews after the trial ended. They frankly shared that the evidence presented by the prosecution was still not convincing enough and needed further strengthening. Overall, they felt there was still a lack of crucial evidence to definitively confirm that the suspect was truly guilty. Eric Thompson's case has left many unsatisfactorily answered questions in the public's mind. It seems as though all the pieces of evidence have been laid out before us, but something crucial is still missing to complete the full picture. This is precisely the greatest challenge in murder cases. The only witness who can accurately recount what happened is the victim, and that person is no longer alive. Therefore, prosecutors must rely on circumstantial evidence to build a case against the defendant. So in this case, what circumstantial evidence did the prosecution present? Besides the timeline that police deduced and constructed, surveillance images captured a man driving a white Chevrolet pickup truck moving in and out of the area near the clinic, while Eric also owned exactly this type of vehicle. The surveillance footage also showed the suspect accidentally dropping a white hat on the street while hurriedly escaping from the victim's office. Later, a homeless person picked up and wore this hat. When police finally found the hat, they discovered it might contain important DNA traces. There was also police discovery of a burned pot on a wheelbarrow at Eric's home, possibly used to destroy evidence. Because that night, neighbor surveillance videos showed flames rising in Eric's yard. Experts pointed out that once this second-degree murder charge is established, Eric would face life imprisonment and hypothetical punishment. Combined with the other felony charges he faces, there's a very high probability he would spend the rest of his life in prison. So, what do you think about this case? Is Eric the perpetrator who murdered John or not? Please share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for following along and see you in the next videos.